Welcome to my portable ham shack build video. Well, I guess this whole build started when I was up at the old man's range looking at the antennas up on the hill, and it just clicked. I should get into amateur radio. After a few weeks operating from a Toyota Hilux and having the 6200 fall off the dash, bending the microphone connection into the case, which I fixed with a soldering iron and some hot glue, it became clear I needed a space to play radio. This wasn't my first encounter with radio. I'd had a wideband scanner and a 27 MHz CB radio all my teenage years, so I knew slightly what I was trying to achieve. After some back and forth trying to figure out what I was going to do, I stumbled across a 1.6 by 3 meter box trailer, which was manufactured about the same time as my 88 Toyota Hilux. It had been used for multiple things during its life, and at one point I think it might have been a refrigeration trailer. I sat in the trailer one evening with my radio gear on a camp table, with a pen and paper in hand, trying to plan how I wanted it to look. The inside of the trailer was pretty rough. There'd been a lot of things welded to the frame over the years, so there's a lot of prep work involved before I even started the build. There was a few days' work involved in just removing the old insulation and grinding off all the old bits that had been welded to the frame. I wanted solar panels on the roof and somewhere to mount the antennas, so the first thing to do was to make a roof rack. The roof rack was probably the most complicated part because the brackets on the solar panels had to all fit perfectly, and also the roof rack had to attach to the main frame of the trailer. To line the inside of the trailer, I used 12mm plywood and 25mm XPS insulation. All the tables and shelves on the inside were made out of 25mm box section and 40mm 5mm flat bar. When I made the upper shelf, I just used the table as a jig. The shelf and table was made of one piece, bolted together. Everything was painted with the CRC rust converter, undercoat and then a top coat, and the plywood got a coating of polyurethane. So you can see here I've started fitting the table and shelf and made a start on the electrical side of things. The plywood for the table was sandwiched between the upper shelf and the frame of the table and then just bolted together. I used some leftover plywood to make a channel at the back of the table so I could run the wires to the outlets, keeping things a little tidy and offering a bit of protection. I used the steel from an old oven to make the 4 electrical outlet panels. I put in 12V XT60 and cigarette lighter outputs. I also put in 19V, 24V and a USB charging ports. Here's the trailer 90% finished, although it's probably always going to be 90% finished because I'm always going to be changing something. On the roof I went with 4 170W panels sold by Hardcore, mainly because they were a good size for the trailer and sold locally.
Meaning it is resistant to hail, stones and those accidental knocks. I
guess we'll find out how true that is. I see some people going for the Jenison solar controllers because they were low noise, but I haven't had any issues with the Victron. I'm pretty pleased with the way it turned out. With the panels sitting flat on the roof, you're never going to get the full 170 watts output, but I don't think I'll need it anyway. I bolted 3 boxes onto the side so I can pass the coax to the inside. One of the boxes I ended up using for the Anytone GPS antenna and the global sat USB GPS receiver, which I use on the PC. I put a temperature probe on one of them so I could see the outside temperature. Where the coax passes through, I made some 3D printed tubes to give it that semi-pro touch. I put a 240 volt caravan connection on the front so I can connect to a generator or straight to mains power. I found 3 second-hand 22-inch monitors. One I've kept as a spare for only $5 each. I chose these because they run on 19 volts. With some 12mm ply offcuts, I made this stand for the 6200 an amp. I used an old PC fan, which is more than enough to keep the Xiegu running cool. I made this basic holder for the G90 to stop it sliding around the table in transit. There's an extendable ladder which is attached to the wall. It's good for adjusting the antennas and cleaning the solar panels. I installed a second-hand 200-watt REDARC inverter. Using the 3-way switch, I can choose the 240 volt source from the exterior plug or from the inverter. There's 2 100 amp hour lithium batteries wired in parallel. These are charged from the solar panels or the installed 240 volt charger. The wires going into the fuse box still need to be tidied up. There is a 19 volt 20 amp and a 24 volt 5 amp step up transformer. I had EMI issues on the 80 and 40 meter bands with the 19 volt transformer, so I installed 2 10 amp filters in parallel. There's a 200 watt dummy load mounted to the wall at the back. The Anytone AT-D578UV Plus is the only new radio I've purchased. The rest are an assortment of VHF, UHF radios I've collected over the years, many long before I had an amateur license. There's a WinRadio 305 receiver in the top right and 2 GM300s and a MaxTrack M216. The old IBM laptop that I have is perfect for programming these because it has a real serial port. There's a couple of Ethernet switches, one with 24 volt PoE. There's an audio amp for the Asus laptop running a couple of small speakers. I'm a bit of a fan of the XT60 connectors. There's 12 here on the end panel. So here we are inside with the doors closed, sending a couple of WinLink emails using Vara HF. On a dark winter's day, you might get 4 hours of use from the PC and the radios before you really start to eat into the battery capacity. But I think in the summer, these panels will produce more energy than I know what to do with. I've been a licensed ham operator for only 4 months now, but interested in radio all my life. I only know a small fraction of the interesting stuff there is to learn in this hobby, and I'm hoping this trailer will be a great place to play radio. I hope you found this trailer video interesting. Hope to catch you on air sometime. 73s.